Okay, so sorry. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Bridging Borders, accessible African tech talent for the global community. I'm really excited to see everyone from all over the world, which is perfect because we will be talking about connecting talented people across the continent. My name is Danielle Martins, and I will be your host today. So before we jump in, I would tell you a little bit about why this matters so much to us. So here's the thing. We've seen the same story happen over and over again. Companies are struggling to find good developers, and at the same time, Africa has one of the most talented, creative, and hardworking developers that you would ever meet. But somehow, these two groups aren't connecting, and there is this weird gap that shouldn't exist. And today, we're going to fix that. So we've got four amazing people here who've been making these connections happen for years, and they're going to share the real stories, the good, the challenging, and everything in between. So these people have helped thousands of people launch and start their careers, and they're here to talk to you today. So you're basically getting free advice. So these aren't people who talk about talent, they're people who have actually found it, trained it, and connected it with the right opportunities. So let me introduce everyone. So first up, we have Emmanuel Onya. So Emmanuel is the CEO of Anchor Bridge Consulting. Emmanuel helps company actually grow by getting the right people, processes, and technology working together. And under his leadership, Anchor Bridge has become the trusted partner for CRM, EPR implementation, sales enablement, and talent augmentation as well. He connects company with top tier tech professionals from Africa. He works with businesses across North America to deliver real solutions and unlock the full potential of the global team. So Emmanuel, thank you for being here today. Next, we have Banan McLean DeQual, who founded DKloud Consulting. And here's what I love about Banhan's story. So he used to be a pharmacist in the UK. Then he completely switched careers to become a Salesforce expert. So he's trained over 1,000 people over UK and Nigeria, and he successfully launched careers. So Banan, great to have you here. And we also have Richard Brandt, who started CodeTrain Africa. So Richard's story is wild because he built Ghana's biggest coding school with one mission, which is help Africa's brightest minds succeed in tech globally. He's trained over 700 developers and 89% of them get jobs. He's won awards and also has been recognized as Ghana top leaders. Richard is glad to have you here as well. And finally, but not the least, we have Christine Burmeister. So Christine is the head of commercial sales at the Amatroit Group. She actually started out in hospitality management before moving into tech talent. So for more than 10 years now, she's been helping fast growing companies figure out their workforce needs. She works with companies in healthcare, finance, retail, tech, and she's really good at connecting what businesses need with the right technology and people to make that happen, which is what we're going to be discussing today. So Christine, welcome. So these four have decades of experience making these connections work. So let's just dive right in and let's talk about the real issues. So we'll start with something that makes us a little bit uncomfortable, but we need to talk about it. So, Emmanuel, when you're talking to companies in North America about African developers, what are the biggest misconceptions that you hear?
Thank you guys so much. And thank you, Danielle, for hosting this. This is very, very, I think the conversations that we're going to have today are going to be very beneficial to a lot of folks, both here in North America and in Africa on a whole. With regards to what I am hearing or what we hear at Anchor Bridge when we're speaking with companies with regards to African talent, to be very honest with you, I think that the problem is more of awareness. Individuals or companies here in the United States, it's more so that they're not aware on how exactly access the talent from Africa, or how exactly they can go about reaching out to someone that they potentially would like to work for them. I think it's access, and a lack of awareness and knowledge with regards to the African market in a whole. It's very it can be very challenging to navigate the African economy and atmosphere if you really haven't don't have a presence there, or if you don't know it well enough. And so you find companies not wanting to take the risk of going to Africa for onshore talent. But what we do, at least for here at Anchor Bridge, our business model, or with regards to offshore talent, isn't something that's unique or new. The offshore model placement has been around for years now, and it's something that it will continue to happen just because tech talent is all over the world, and you're able, and given the cost of getting a developer in the United States versus in Africa, or in Africa, or from an African company, country, sorry, there's a big difference there. So this is not something that we think is going to be slowing down anytime soon. The only difference in what we do is that instead of getting our talent from India, or from Eastern Europe, or from South America, we get it from Africa. So the model is not unique. It's the same thing. It's we want to make sure we make it very easy for clients here in the United States to do business with us. We make sure that we are certified. We have all the standards with regards to global certifications and insurance and general liability policies, to make sure that our clients feel very comfortable doing business with us. It's about providing, because there's two ways to this too, Danielle. It's not just, yes, from a very, very large standpoint, our goal is to provide opportunity to amazing tech talent in Africa. But however, it is also to provide great tech to smaller and to medium-sized businesses here in North America as well. It's technology is expensive, and it's gotten much harder over the years to play as a business if you do not have the right tech stack to support you. The cost of acquisition for most businesses has gone up, and that's just because the cost of a single lead is so much more expensive today than it has ever been, just because there's just so much noise in the marketplace. And for you to define who your ideal client is and then find them, it costs a lot more today than it has ever cost before. And so knowing that the cost of technology is so much higher today, and you can't play without technology, individuals are open to looking in different areas where they can get the same quality of work at a more affordable rate, which is why the offshore model has persisted, and why it still exists. So just to summarize, I would say what we're hearing is it's a lack of awareness, it's a lack of knowledge with regards to how to access the talent. It's not a lack of not wanting to, because the need is there. The need has always been there, and so it's really about educating individuals and potential clients here in the United States with regards to what the potential is, and the quality of talent that they can get. I think that's where the gap is.
Yeah, thank you, Emmanuel. So I hear the exact same thing all the time. And the point you mentioned about awareness really hits home for me, because companies need to know that this is a viable and a proven option. So, Christine, you've worked with offshore teams all over the world. Why does this talent gap persist despite Africa's growing developer population?
Yeah, hi. Thanks, Danielle, and thanks everybody for having me here today. I think Emmanuel touched on it a little bit. I think from a customer perspective in North America, it's a lack of understanding, education, and awareness of what exists in Africa. So This model is not new, as it was mentioned, right? We have provided talent out of Asia and South America most heavily, and then started to build talent centers out in Eastern Europe. The same type of talent seems to exist in Africa. It's just having trusted partners that are able to bridge that gap between North America and Africa that are able to educate individuals here. It's a new geography that is untapped, in my opinion. Same type of development resourcing, same skilled resources that exist in these other geographies that we have previously leveraged. And something that we need to take into consideration is the first companies or organizations that took the leap to get talent out of Asia. There was a little bit of trust that had to go out on a branch and say, okay, will this work? We had to do the same thing when we looked at South America, and we had to do the same thing when we started to look at Eastern Europe. Africa has some advantages to those other geographies. And the fact that, the price point is a little bit more competitive than South America, or it tends to be for the same type of skilled resourcing. But there also can accommodate some of that time zone overlap that we can get out of South America that we can't always necessarily get out of Eastern Europe and Asia. So those are just a few of the things that I think there's lack of education around of how to leverage this talent and the benefits you can get of leveraging them throughout North America.
Yeah, thank you so much for Christine, for talking about that. You did mention trust, and I think we will talk more as the conversation progresses. So this shows how important these conversations are to have. So, Banan, what structural or systematic changes are limiting the accessibility of African tech talent? So, is it perception, or are these real issues that we need to address?
Yeah, thanks very much, guys. Thanks very much for having me. I think the first thing, I'll just pick up where Daniel left it, where Christian left it as well. I think that lack of partners that can kind of bridge the gap, I think is something really, really huge here. And I think Emmanuel also touched on the fact that, misconception is another big factor. And I think that the solution to that is having partners like ourselves that have been operating within those markets, leveraging the same talents, coming out to talk about it more. And I think this is what I'm starting to see consistently happen, is that we're starting to kind of go out there and talk about some of the talents that some of the talents we have in Africa and our companies are currently leveraging, and so on and so forth. And I believe that that is the first step in building that trust. Do you see what I mean? Because, if I can't employ people from my continent, why would I be telling other people to do that, if that makes sense? Now, I'm doing that, Emmanuel is doing that, and there's so many other people within this ecosystem in different sectors as well. It's not just Salesforce. It's all CRMs that you can think about. It's front-end developers, back-end developers, all these kind of people are all out there. So I think what we need to do is we need to advocate and talk about these things even more. I think that's the first thing. The second thing as well that I think is really critical in terms of structures that we need to have in place is platforms as well. I think that's one thing that's potentially lacking, is having either a unified platform or just different platforms where people can actually access some of these talent. I've worked with a guy here in the UK. I know, he's told me that he's got a database that has like thousands of people, within Africa that are within the tech, a sector. But what is missing is, do we have a web portal somewhere where you can actually go in there and access some of these resources that you can genuinely vouch for? And even where we have them, are we advocating? Are we putting it out there? Do people know that we have these kind of platforms that they can actually leverage to see the different skill sets that are actually available in Africa? I think that one of the biggest things that we're really missing, and I think again it's been touched on by Christine in terms of time zone, but also the young population in Africa is massive. There is massive growth. There's a lot of people that are just waiting for opportunity, and particularly now with AI coming, I know for sure that there are so many people that currently don't even want to think about AI or what it can even offer or what it is about. There's the huge talent of young people out there that if you can just train them and model them and all of that heavy lifting, not just for companies in the West, but even companies locally as well. So I think that's, for me, I think these are the two critical things in terms of, being more of advocates for the talent we have in Africa, but also having unified platforms, but putting ourselves out there as genuine companies that are working with talent out there in Africa as well.
Thank you, Pam. So this is a perfect segue. It brings us to the trust question. So this is something that I personally think a lot about. It's one thing to hire someone for a small project, and it's completely different to trust them with your most important system. So let me ask all of you this. With Africa's growing developer population, what can African tech teams do to earn greater trust and be seen as reliable partners for mission critical projects? Emmanuel, what do you tell your clients?
Yeah, very good question with regards to trust. Now, obviously, we throw on a lot, and I think trust is something that's built with time, and it's built with being able to showcase credibility in your area of work or your expertise per se. And trust is also a two-way street, right? So, one of the things that us as Africans, and I have been fortunate enough to, obviously, I was born in Lagos, and I'm in Africa once or twice every single year or so, and I have quite a lot of family in Nigeria. So I'm very blessed that I have the knowledge base of both the United States and Africa, having lived here for almost 13 years now in the US. So for me, I've come to understand some of those nuances that most people don't see. And, I always say to my dad, my father is was born in Enugu State and was raised there, and he will tell you that Nigerians are more adamant to be wronged by Nigerians than outsiders. It's an innate trust issue, and they will always trust their people more than outsiders. And I think this is the same thing, and this is the same thing with most places that you go, to be very honest with you. So I mentioned that because I do think it's a two-way street. And when we, as a company, we speak to clients, we want them to feel comfortable. And the way we do that is by not just telling them that we can do the work, but showing them that we can do the work. Showing them the work that we've already done, building credibility by showing them, really good demo, and then the standards that we or that we offer services through, they have to be world-class standard. You should be able to come to Anchor Bridge and go through our sales process. And if you go through another sales process with another company that is offering you similar services, you should walk away. And if they're following the standards or global standards, you should walk away. And it should be, obviously not everything is going to be similar, but it should be along the lines of what it is that you're used to, or what it is that you've come to understand as the process for services, as particularly when it comes to web development or CRM development, right? So when it comes to trust, we build that by showing our work. We show our work as much as we can. We don't just say we can do it. We want you to see it. We want to show you that we can do it. We go through a demo environment. We go through when we get a new potential client, or when we're speaking with someone that's in our pipeline, we go through multiple different discovery calls, and it's just to understand better because the thing with services and mobile development and CRM development is that it truly is a team effort. You cannot build and have a successful project without your client being your teammate, and vice versa, because you're going to need to leverage your time. You're going to need to be able to speak with them. They are going to have to be willing to share information with you. And it's not always pertinent information with regards to like their more important data, but it's more, what are your business flows? What's your workflow? What's your sales process? And being able to really trust and know that you are able to take that information and build it into a CRM or build it into a workflow. That's really important. And so when we go through a discovery call, we do our alignment with our client. We make sure that whatever it is that we discover or that we learn in the discovery call, our clients we have an alignment with our client, and we get a verbal confirmation that this is exactly what it is that they want us to focus on. And then we do present a demo to our clients so they know that, hey, listen, we can actually build what we're telling you that we can build, and we take it from there. So with regards to just trust in general, trust is built through credibility. Trust is built through and us as Nigerians and also as Americans, and we have to be willing to trust is scary. Trusting someone that you don't know, particularly someone that you've never met in real life, that you're speaking to across, and they're in a completely different place in the world and with different culture, different things that are important to them, different nuances. It is scary. It is. It's supposed to be scary. If you weren't scared about that, and we would have other concerns. So but it does require taking a leap of faith and biting and taking small bites at a time, really going through the process with the company that you're working with, ensuring that they are, you know, insured and certified, and that you are in good hands, and making sure that they have locations in both countries, here in the United States and in Nigeria or in Africa or in the UK or in Ghana, really ensuring that you're working with people that have done the work and done it multiple different times and have the proof point to show that. That's very important. And that builds trust. I think over time, when you work with a client, and for us, we are private firms, so we build our business on relationships, really solid relationships, being able to go out there and and communicate with people, them, and build friendships and build long life friendships. I tell people that I work with all the time, it's not, yes, we want to do business together, but more importantly, I would relationship with you. I would really love to invest my time in understanding what it is that you want done here, and making sure that myself and my team can give you the best value possible. And I think if you do that over and over and over again, and you are unwavering in the standard that you have for yourself as an individual, for your company, and for the work you put out, trust will come over time.
Wow, that makes total sense. Thank you, Emmanuel. So yeah, trust builds over time, and that would be through consistent delivery. So Richard, you've trained 700 developers with an incredible 89% job placement rate. So from your experience training hundreds of developers, what specific skill or mindset do you see in African developers that makes them particularly valuable to the global companies? And how do you compare them to compete on the international stage?
Okay, thanks so much. It's really nice meeting all of you. Yeah, so I think that well, it's a huge continent. West Africans are very different from East Africans, Southern Africans. So I would say in terms of West Africa, Ghana, Nigeria, and I think one thing that sets us apart is that we are very friendly people. I think most of the time you would get smiles from people, even in the worst case scenarios. And we can be very patient and conflict averse. We are not really, we shy away from conflict as well. I mean, they are not the best of properties sometimes, but a combination of these makes positions us to be able to collaborate, have a bigger edge in collaborating globally. So we've had students graduate from CodeTrain and working for companies in the US, Canada, Germany, and other places, and they seem to fit in culturally faster. And our role in CodeTrain is to, we are very big on culture. So we look at some of the strengths, like some of the things I mentioned. They come with weaknesses too, because it's because we are not really open to conflict. Sometimes we are not open enough. And so what we do is that in our training program, we, instead of taking just a short time to teach them the technical skills, we almost coding boot camps are very short-term, but we take a long-term approach. So we look at like a comprehensive 2-year period, and to build trust, to get to know them, to get to know their weaknesses, their strengths, and then work on them and make sure that we work on their culture fits too, so that by the time they are working for global companies or Anchor Bridge or our partners, they should have a sense, they should be aware of some of the cultural nuances. They should be aware of some of the things that people, because it's not just about the tech skills as well, but they should be ready to also know what culture, some of the cultural things. I know in most parts of Europe, I mean, if you are on time, you are late. But I mean, so the the biggest advantages are the way our nature, but then it also has certain weak points that we focus on strengthening those weak points so that we can give very good candidates out to our partners.
Yeah, thank you, Richard. I love that. So I love that you are not just teaching code, you're also preparing people for the global stage as well. So thank you. Banan, what is your take on building that trust?
Yeah, you know what, that's a really big question, but to be honest, really interesting as well. You know, I completely agree with what the other speakers have already spoken about, particularly on the fact that trust takes a lot of time. But I think one of the things that I want to kind of focus on as far as trust is concerned as well is the fact that, I mean, as companies that kind of operate within Africa today, kind of working with young people coming into the ecosystem and all of that, one thing that I think we don't do enough of is we don't necessarily put out some of the testimonials, particularly about some of the success stories that we've had. So I give you an example, like we do quite a few implementations. Some of them, in fact, I remember our first few implementations that we did in Nigeria were completely free. We didn't charge a dime for it. And why did we do that? The reason why we did it was multifactorial. The first one was, all I was thinking about was I want to give these young people hands-on experience of running a proper project. So even though we delivered these projects for free, my focus was we needed to follow a standard process, an agile process to delivery, you know, process design, solution design, user stories, everything. I wanted to kind of inculcate that into some of these young people that are working with us. And that afforded us that opportunity. But of course, before we went into that and before we decided to do the implementation for free, so we did the one for Kanu Hard Foundation. One of the things that we had to get from them was an agreement that once we finish, we're going to use their logo, we're going to use their branding, we're probably going to get, you know, a few podcasts and things like that. Now, you probably haven't seen that. That's because we've not really been good in following up and doing those things. Do you see what I'm saying? And that's what I'm talking about here, is the fact that it's so important and it's so critical for us to put out some of these success stories out there, because there are companies in Africa that are using Salesforce and a lot of these technologies. Emmanuel, you're doing a lot of stuff out there as well. We need to be putting these things out there so people know that there are Africans that are building these solutions in Africa and for African companies as well. I think that that's potentially the first way that we can start to build that trust. And like I mentioned, you know, just putting it out there, you know, on LinkedIn and so on and so forth, you know, is also really, really important. The other thing as well that I'll probably talk about is, I think this is really critical, is encouraging companies locally in Africa to use the same technology that we're trying to kind of put out there to other people outside. I think that that's really, really important. And I think the importance of that as well is that it allows us companies that are doing these implementations to understand some of the challenges, some of the issues within the continent, and how to also address those kind of issues as well. I would just keep it there. I know that there's so many different factors that we can actually leverage on to build trust, and I'm sure other people are going to add more to that, but I think that's where I'll stop.
Thank you, Bam. I totally agree with what you said. So the right type of noise is what we need, and that is the best approach in order to drive credibility. So Christine, you've worked with teams from different continents. How does working with African teams compare to other regions?
Yeah, and I think, you know, I touched a bit on this on my original response when we started talking about the opening questions. And I think that there is a misconception of what exists in Africa and what can be leveraged out of Africa. From what I have seen, the young, vibrant talent is very aligned to the culture in North America. I think that is an advantage. I think there's a better cultural understanding. I think there is that sense of ownership when you take on a project or a body of work that you want to deliver a superior project back to that customer. I think all of this ties back into trust and relationship. What from my experience is those that are from the African continent are also very loyal. So they want to make sure that they're providing what their customer needs, building that trust, so they are going to get repeated business. The difference that we see is at times, one of the big struggles that we're starting to have because the market is so saturated and penetrated and talent is in such high demand in some of these other geographies is we have a retention problem. So who starts on your project might not be the same team that ends on your project. And that happens here in North America as well. The market for good tech talent is very, very competitive. So when you move into these more untapped markets with this young, vibrant population that's really trying to enter the marketplace, it gives you an advantage that they have something to prove. They want to show everybody that, they can compete in this space. So companies like DKloud and Anchor Bridge, just socializing those things to North America and people in the United States, it's really about an awareness. Admittedly for myself, until I started working directly with Anchor Bridge, African talent was a black box to me, other than those individuals that I had in my own personal ecosystem that had moved to the United States and were educating me in a personal setting. So it's very exciting to me that there are these companies that are bridging these gaps to educate people on the differentiator of talent in Africa. And I think it is a place that we can really accelerate to find qualified talent that can deliver quality work back to our customers.
Yeah, thank you so much, Christine. That was really insightful. So before I proceed, I would like to remind the audience that they can make use of the Q&A that we have. So you can put down any questions that you have, and we would take note of that. So thank you. So Christine, building upon what you said so far, you've seen different approaches work. So in your view, which of the staffing models yield the best outcomes when it comes to African tech talent? So would that be freelance platforms, augmented teams, or full outsourcing? What are the advantages or trade-offs for each?
Yeah. So Danielle, that's kind of what I would call a large, multi-layered question, right? So I think what's important when you're considering the model that you're going to provide back to your end customer is we have to decide and figure out what is the work that is looking to be done. It could just be one person that's needed to work on more of a freelance project that is, not a full-time engagement that they need. They need like strategic guidance on something. It could be that they need a team of people, and it could be that they need an outcome-based project, right? So I think it all starts with qualifying the reason and why they are looking to, one, outsource their project outside of the United States. And then number two, what are they looking for that outcome to be? That's going to allow us as trusted partners with them to guide them on what is the correct solution for the problem that they have. I can tell you I've had countless times where a customer has come to me and said, I need this, this, and this, and I want them to be in India. And I have to start to ask them better qualifying questions to understand what they're actually really trying to accomplish. And I would say 50% of the time, the solution that we land on while we collaborate and I listen and we talk through what the end state and the end goal is, the solution we end up deploying to fix the problem is not the solution that they came to the table telling me that they needed or wanted. So I think, and we keep tying everything back, but I think it ties it back to trust and relationships, right? So building that relationship up front, that they are going to trust that what you're telling them is going to guide them in the right direction. I think that will be a way that we can leverage and make sure that we are providing the correct model to deliver to the problem, and they trust that when we say we can do something, not only can we show them and not only can we prove that we've done it, but we've built that trusted relationship that they can take that guidance.
Yeah, thank you so much, Christine. And I absolutely agree with you. So the first step into making sure that you give the client the right model would be addressing the pain points. And that is something that could be done on a discovery call with the client. So thank you for that. So Banan, what successful African-based tech team engagement look like from onboarding to delivery? So could you walk us through what success really looks like?
Yeah, thank you very much for that question. So I think for us anyway, as a company, it always starts with, people, right? I think for us, we always start with asking the question, what, why, when? Like what is it that you truly want to achieve? So I give you an example. We did an implementation for a charity organization out in Nigeria. And for us, the primary focus was to understand what were the key, most important things that they need. Now, usually when you ask a client that kind of question, they'll come up with everything, right? They'll tell you they want everything to be done. But usually, I think what we tend to do is we document everything, and then we start to kind of prioritize that to then come up with what we feel is an MVP for them to be able to start using the system. Because so many times we find that we do a huge implementation, you put all the bells and whistles, but the funny thing is, like a month later, the client is ringing you saying, hey, we wanted this, but it's not there. And the reason is because it's actually there, but it's hidden in a lot of the other stuff that you've actually created for them. So our approach generally is to see how we can keep things simple in a way that allows them to function really well from day one. And then as we go on, we start to build up on top of that kind of implementation that we've done. And we found that that has been immensely successful for a lot of clients. We get really good reviews, purely because we're able to deliver on some of the most important things that they actually want. Now, I think for us as well, what success looks like at the end of the day is, where we get a really good review, where they're happy for us to kind of use them as a case study, and all of that, give us a bit of a thing on App Exchange to say that, we've done a good job of their implementation and all of that. But I think what is most important for us is when we go back in 3 months later and we see that there's a lot of data in there, they're using the system, they're getting a lot of benefit from it, and then they're coming back now asking for us to kind of build on top of what we've already built in the system for them.
That makes a lot of sense. Thank you, Bam. So Richard, here's something I'm really curious about. What gaps do you see between what global companies say they want and what they actually need? And how are you bridging that gap to ensure that your graduates are not just skilled, but also globally competitive?
Okay, so it's basically great. The great of getting things done. Because there are so many learners, there are so many learning programs, but there isn't enough time to take them through multiple projects, and then try to mimic the workflows in a real in a real life company. So in the year 2 of our program, we are mostly putting them in teams. And then we are modeling real life scenarios where they get to solve problems given by companies. They do stand-ups, and the assumption is that they do it for real. That way they get the real experience of what it really takes to deliver something, because the feedback loops. And I think they learn a lot, because they realize that building a personal project is quite a different ballgame from actually delivering something to a business. And I think Robert will have will be a witness to that, because he is one of our alumni. So that experience is actually what mostly bridges the gap. And sometimes it's not even just about the technical aspects of the project, but being able to be teachable, putting their ego aside and taking feedback, and then also communicating and asking questions. Listening is a very big skill that mostly is underrated. So their listening skills, they being able to ask questions, take feedback, touch base with the team, deliver projects, and then ask for feedbacks and move forward is those skills are applying the things that they learn in a simulated work environment is so valuable. And also today, sometimes failing at it, experience some some failures, and then trying to correct things and getting back, and that emotional aspect of it also contributes to they being world class.
Yeah, thank you, Richard. That is such an important insight, and I love that you're literally seeing both sides of the equation. So Emmanuel, companies always worry about the practical stuff. So how can companies mitigate concerns around time zone, data security, and communication gaps? And what role do companies like Anchor Bridge play in building trust and execution gaps for global clients?
Thank you so much, Daniel. That was a very good question. And Richard, thank you for the lovely training you're doing, because my CIO is top level, so I appreciate you. Uh,
You're welcome.
but no, with regards to the question that you've asked, so with in the United States, the East Coast time zone and West Africa is actually, I mean, my team is based out of Nigeria mostly, and there's a 5 hour difference. We're able to have communication, and it actually it works out very, very well. I think with regards to the time zone, the offshore model, there are companies in the United States that are working with companies in India, and if memory serves me correct, based on where you are in the United States, it's probably like a 12-hour difference. So with regards to time zones, or the time difference, I think West Africa aligns so much better with both Europe and the United States. Um, with regards to just the process itself, our internal processes and how we get to clients, or how we we gain that trust with clients, and going back to the trust factor, we're built on 3 pillars. Our company is built on 3 pillars, and it just really is people, process, technology, and we stand by that. We have internal processes that guide us. We have internal processes that guide everything that we do with regards to how we go to market, our go-to-market strategy, how our sales process, even for our project side of our business, but also for staff augmentation, because there are 2 different processes. And then the technology that we use, right? The technology that we use for our clients, everything is built on our client's name. Everything is, developed straight from GitHub all the way. So, you know, uh, just openness, and not be, we don't have anything to hide. We're very, very open with regards to how we do our business, and the processes that we use to do our business. And Richard, you hit it on the head. Listening is a big deal. Like, we have to listen to your clients. You have to listen to what it is that your clients want. One of the things that we noticed right away is, I had an experience with someone that I interviewed when I first wanted to start my Anchor Bridge. And during the interview, this young man went on to proceed to tell me everything that I needed to do with my company. And I left the interview not very impressed, to say the least. So it's really a situation where, from our perspective and from our sales team, myself, because I still do sell quite a bit. Sunday, Daniel, our client-facing individuals, it really is about listening to the client and the discovery. When you're doing your discovery, making, ensuring, and we really do try to get discovery from multiple different stakeholders or end users. We think it gives us a better overall understanding of what the pain points are in the business, and not just from one perspective, but we'd really try to get other touch points in the account for multiple reasons. And it also helps build trust, within the account. It helps build trust within our organization, and just exposure. For my team particularly, one of the things that I definitely is at the top of my list every day is, who can I get them in front of, or who can I, I want to expose them as much as possible. I want to get them in front of as many people as possible. I want to get them speaking to people that don't look anything like them. And I want them to get comfortable doing that. I want them to get comfortable doing that over and over again. And I think when you're able to do that, and when you're able to expose your talent to things that they're not used to, and not being afraid to do that. Mercy, my channel partner manager, on her second day at the company, I had her jump on a call with me with Pipedrive, with the individual that we were working on a partnership with. We also partner with Pipedrive now, thankfully. But she was able to jump on the call with me with Pipedrive, and I didn't hold her back. I had her speak. I said, Mercy, speak. We want to hear your voice. We want to hear your opinion. And I said it in front of the Pipedrive, the team from Pipedrive, and I think they appreciated that too. And since that point, I think, what that really did for Mercy was it allowed her not to be afraid. It allowed her to really understand that, no, I want to hear what you have to say. People, I want to hear your input. I am interested in hearing your voice. I am interested in hearing what you have to say. And other people are too. All these other people on the call are too. It doesn't matter if they look like you. We're all interested. And I think once you do that over and over, and you expose your team, and you just not being afraid to expose people to the unknown, and knowing that, hey, listen, we've got each other's back. Whatever happens, we'll take care of it. We'll move forward. We'll learn from it. And that's what we're here to do. Every day at our company, we are here to learn. We're here to get better. And if we get better as a company, if we get better as individuals, then we can serve our clients so much better. I want my CRM lead, Godfrey, he's on calls every day with people from the United States and people from Europe. And same thing with Robert, they're on calls every day with people from Europe, with people from the United States, Danielle as well. We are not shy. We will send connection requests, we will call, we will text, we will email, and I encourage my people, do not be shy, and the most of someone will tell you that I'm not interested, and that's okay. So be brave, be bold, be courageous in the pursuit of what it is that you want. Do not let anyone shut you down or put a wool over your eye. Be consistent in your approach. Always strive to uplift yourself and continue to educate yourself. And listen, be attentive. Listen to what the client wants. Do not assume that you know the client's business. Do not assume that you know the client. Listen to what they want, hear them out, and then have conversations, real conversations. It takes two to have a conversation. So and it takes you being able to listen and comprehend in order for you to have valid things to communicate to whoever it is that you're having a conversation with. So Richard is 100% right with the fact that listening is such an underrated value. Please listen to your customers. If I can ever give you a piece of advice here on this call, is that whenever you are speaking to a potential client or a customer, listen to what they want, hear them out, listen to their pain points, figure out the positive business outcomes that come from that pain point, and articulate that to your clients, because they may not know. They know that they're having an issue, but they may not know what solving that issue may cause or result, or what the positive or the negative outcomes that may come from solving that issue. Because you may see this as an issue, but then you go to fix this and it may cause more problems for you. So remember, you are the professional, you are the educated, but you are educated in this skill set. This is your skill set. So when your clients come to you, you listen to them, you hear them out, you understand what they want, you understand their needs, and then it is your responsibility to be open and have a conversation with them with regards to what that looks like, what it would take to fix that. Is it even possible to fix that given their ecosystem? And is this the right time to fix that? And don't be afraid to tell the truth. Not every client is going to be your client. We've had to turn away clients before, the projects that just don't fit us. We've had people come to us and offer us projects, and it doesn't fit us. It doesn't fit what we do. We do not have expertise in that realm. We will not take that project. We will say no. And that is okay. It's okay to say no sometimes. It really is. It won't kill your career to say no from time to time. In fact, it may save your career. So that is my 2 cents where that's concerned, Dania.
Yes, Emmanuel, the part where you mentioned openness and also exposure resonated with me because that is something that I've seen myself. And thank you for sharing the real stories as well. So, talking about real stories or more real stories, Christine, can you share a personal example from your experience working with offshore teams where the talent exceeded expectation? What made that engagement successful, and what lesson can others take from it?
Thanks, Danielle. So, I mean, I can think of countless examples of where we deploy teams that didn't necessarily reside domestically in the US, and the outcome of the work that was provided exceeded the customer's expectation based on previous previous engagements they'd had with individuals outside the domestic US, or just what their expectation of talent outside of the 50 states that we have here are. One specific example actually is around a hot topic of automation. We had a customer that really wanted to accelerate their automation roadmap, but sometimes there is budget constraints when you're looking to accelerate things that you are planning to span out over multiple years. And we need to look at a more viable price point for them to get these things done. How do you do that here in the United States? You start looking at lower price point geographies where you can get the same qualified resources and talent to help provide that acceleration. So we did go about doing this. And where I think it started to exceed expectations, Emmanuel just touched on a little bit, is understanding the pain points and understanding those positive business outcomes that you're looking to see. So making sure that the expectation of what the customer is looking to achieve is mutually agreed upon. You need to understand that the way that the project success is going to be judged is mutually agreed upon and understood. So that going into the project, everybody has a very clear expectation of what is going to be happening, what that timeline looks like, and how quickly things need to be done. It helps in multiple ways. We talked a little bit about what type of engagement do you need to have here. Is it staff aug? Is it teaming? Is it project-based, right? We can talk a little bit about the size of the team. These are all qualifications up front that help you exceed expectations on the back end. And that happens through thorough qualified discovery on the front end when you're talking about embedding them as a partner. If you're able to meet those needs, Bam talked about it a bit too, of, hey, the idea is to go in, do the work, wow them with what you've given them, look at their user adoption or the return on investment that they made, and then they call you back to do the second iteration to build on platforms or technologies that you had previously built for them. That's really the testament of, did you wow them? Were you successful in the engagement? And do they trust you as a partner? So I think it's really, that specific example around automation was understanding what was the expected return on investment and knowing what type of engagement we needed to embark upon and how we needed to manage that through the delivery of the project. And they were able to, to accelerate that roadmap, to automate faster, to get a quicker return on investment. And that allowed the stakeholders to continue to get investment to continue automation, right? And so they were able to call us back and say, now we want to expand in this space. Can you go and do discovery on these potential problems? So I think, Danielle, in answer to your question, it really starts in that initial discovery, building that relationship and that trust, which we've been talking about throughout these question and answer sessions that we're here hosting, and then making sure that everybody has clear expectation of what's expected of them.
Yeah, thank you so much, Christine, for sharing that. So let's talk about where all of this is heading. So Emmanuel, when you're looking at Africa right now, which regions or cities are the next tech talent hotspots and why? Where should companies be looking that they might not know about yet?
Innately biased, Daniel, for many reasons. So, I'm of course going to say Nigeria, but Richard might not like that very much. But I obviously I think West Africa in general is the tech hub of with regards to technology in Africa. I think West Africa is the place to be. Now, obviously, there are a few people that in Egypt or Morocco that may say otherwise, or there are individuals in South Africa that may say otherwise. So, in truth and in fact, there are a lot of really, really supercharged groups in Africa in general, both on the west side or even in South Africa and in Egypt and in the north that are really doing tremendous work. From what we've seen over the last few years, I would say that Nigeria is probably it has it can come up front as probably the tech capital of Africa at this point. Lagos to be exact. There is a lot of huge innovations and just a lot of technology being developed in Africa and in Lagos and in Nigeria. To be very honest with you, some of the largest conferences in the world are now happening in Lagos on a yearly basis. Some of the largest tech conferences in the world are now happening in Lagos on a yearly basis. Some of the largest tech companies in the world are now establishing offices in Lagos, not now, but have been over the last few years. And to be quite frank, if most of the tech companies now have locations in Lagos, this is not something that's just happening today. This has been happening over the last few years. And when you look at the list of the most the successful tech CEOs that's come from Africa, Nigeria stands out just very, very boldly. Um, I would say that is where we're seeing a lot of traction, and there's many amazing developers, however, in not just Nigeria, but we've seen a lot of fantastic developers in Kenya, in Ghana, in Rwanda, in South Africa, and also in the north, in Egypt as well. What I think a lot of people that are not used to the African continent have to realize as well is that there's so many different languages and nuances and cultures, very big continent, like Richard mentioned, and someone in Nigeria may not be able to communicate, or just similar with regards to the soft skills and the nuances with regards to North America. It's the same thing when a Nigerian may be working with a company from Egypt or from South Africa. It's that there is still a nuance that needs to be learned and developed. So it's not just a bridge between Africa and North America or Europe, but there is also a lot of business being done on the continent of Africa, which also requires the same training, the same expertise, being able to leverage and train your soft skills. And the great thing about that nowadays is that there's so many ways to upskill yourself with regards to soft skills. There's multiple different tools and solutions and softwares that you can use. There was when at my old stint at a previous job, there was a young man that sat as a security, and he didn't speak very good English. Or actually, sorry, he spoke fluent English, but he started dating a Spanish young lady, and he didn't speak very good Spanish. And he would listen to Telemundo, I think that's what it's called, every day during his lunch break. And he started, and then when I would be leaving the office, every now and again, he'll spit out a Spanish phrase to me, and I'd be like, "Oh, I see you've been watching. I see you've been learning." Before you know it, and obviously he's practicing at home too, but practice makes perfect. And so, the more you practice, the more you use, if you want to work with companies in the United States, well, there's multiple ways you can upskill yourself to get a better understanding of what that cultural nuance is. Same thing with South Africa, same thing with Ethiopia or with Egypt or wherever it is that you would like to work. So that is what I would say. I would say that Nigeria is probably standing above and beyond right now in the continent of Africa with regards to technology. I a West African dream, and I told Bam that there's never been a better time to be a Nigerian. So that is it for me, Daniel.
Thank you, Emmanuel. So I totally agree with some of the places that you mentioned, especially Lagos, Nigeria, which I've seen myself. So that is one of the top hotspots. Yeah, so um, moving down to the next top question on my list, it would be the fact about AI tool and it being a replacement to developers. So, Banan, everyone is talking about how AI potentially replace or will replace developers. So, how can AI and automation amplify rather than displace African tech talent?
Thanks very much, Daniel, for that question. I mean, the way I look at it is there's one reason why I believe existing developers don't need to be worried or scared about AI. The reason is because AI is a software tool, right? So would always need people to kind of build infrastructure or build solutions on AI to kind of solve real life problems. I think generally the problem or the reason why you see people start to fret is because they start to lose their minds because they don't have that work ethic to learn new technology. You see what I'm saying? But the truth is that when you sign up to this space that we're working in at the moment, you have to be prepared to learn every day. Okay, because things change really rapidly. And as long as you don't have any problem with that, you will never lack a job and you would always be relevant. Okay. Now, the other thing that I'm seeing, even in my day-to-day activity as well is, if anybody's used like Claude.ai or even ChatGPT, it massively accelerates the amount of work that you can do by far. Things that would generally take you like days to build, like architectural designs that can take you like hours or days to build, this thing can spit it out for you like, within minutes. You know what I mean? So at the end of the day, AI is here to really enhance our lives and make us more productive. And I think that, it's a tool that each and every one of us should actually embrace because it's something that's actually coming to make our lives a lot easier, if you like. The other thing as well is that there are lots of different things that are kind of emerging even from within AI, so prompt engineering obviously being one. If you can align yourself to that and learn it, it's paying a lot of good money nowadays, by the way. There are lots of people that are getting really good money for being prompt engineers and writing really good prompts and all of that. The other thing as well that I think people need to see AI as an ally is that there are lots of new businesses that are coming up on a daily basis. I'm currently supporting a client at the moment that works within, this food industry. And what they're doing is they're building this solution that can take a PDF document of, I don't know, say, for example, a drink, and it can kind of assess to see, what's the ingredients and all of that. As different countries have requirements, right, for what needs to be part of that ingredient and all of that. And that technology is supposed to kind of really enhance that and make it really quick for you to be able to decipher what's actually in the ingredients and make changes accordingly. There are so many things. I have another friend as well who, this guy was literally a salesman. So I worked with him in a previous company. He was a salesman for Salesforce, closed one of the biggest deals I can think of. And I ended up working on that project as well. But this guy started teaching himself AI. As I speak to you now, he is becoming a leader in this space. He's giving talks all the time in London to industry leaders and all of that, because a lot of companies right now don't have an idea what are they supposed to be using AI for. They don't know. You know what I mean? So I think that is something that we all need to embrace. I wish that, honestly, I genuinely wish that I had 2 hours every day to just focus on that and just learn it and understand it, because all of us come from different walks of life. I believe that as a pharmacist, there are applications that there are ways I can apply AI if I understood it to the degree that some people understood it or understand it. So I think it's something that we should all embrace. It's here to literally enhance our lives. And if you're a developer at the moment, you should know better, right? That it can help you write out your code like really, really quickly. It can help you even decipher what's potentially wrong with code that you've already written and so on and so. So it's here to really enhance our lives rather than kind of disrupt the space and put us out of jobs.
Yeah, I totally agree. That is a great way to think about it. AI is a tool and not a replacement. So we would move to some Q&A. I see some interesting question in the Q&A chat. So I'll start with one from Bumi. She's asking what tech fields are in high demand today in Africa. Also, what aspect of tech would you advise someone who has a different background who would like to transition to tech? So, Richard, I believe that you've dealt with this issue before. Could you share your experience? I think you're on mute, Richard.
Sorry, I get this question all the time, and I usually tell most of the young people that the problem is not really about what is hot or what is in demand. The problem in tech is that um, in tech projects, you don't work in isolation, you work in teams, right? So most teams require different kind of people's different kind of skill sets. And the problem is that there's a shortage of people that um, have a talent in something, who have optimized whatever talent and interest that they have. So it's better to focus on what their interests are, what their skills are, what they are good in, what they can do without feeling tired. Like, what are they, what is she or he obsessed about, right? And they would want to add value and learn, right? And hit their potential. That's the problem. And that is what usually we struggle to get people that are really obsessed about the various verticals, and they can learn, right, and they can get training, and with a little push they can succeed. But tech is not like other fields where you can say, hey, accountants are hot cake now, I'm looking for the easiest way out. No, even if something is of high demand and you go into it and you don't have the interest, or you're not good at it, or you're not willing to sacrifice and learn, it becomes a problem. You might still struggle to get hired. You might even hate your job. You might not be in the long run happy. You might not even deliver value to your clients and everything. But people that are really, we had one student who started learning as a software engineer, and then during their they had a mock project, and during that time she volunteered to do the mock-up using Figma. I think Figma had come fresh at that time, so she used Figma and she realized that, wow, I'm really interested in this. I would like to venture into UI UX development. And she's one of the best UI UX devs in Ghana. She's always helping companies in the US and Germany to do really amazing design. And she's obsessed about it. She loves what she does. So I think finding what your obsession is, what you love, and what you can deliver, what you can offer people like Emmanuel, Bam, and Christine. What can you offer them? What can you offer companies? Like, what can you shine in? That question is what we are worried about. But most of the verticals all have demand, and we are just looking for people that can shine in those domains.
Thank you so much, Richard, and thank you, Bumi, for asking that question. So I think we have another question in the QA chat. It's from Abdul Hakim Sulaiman. So it says, thanks to the contributors, is it possible to secure remote roles in cloud, cybersecurity, and DevSecOps domain while being in Africa? What, in your view, could be the reason why it seems so difficult to land such role? If it's trust issue, how do we navigate this problem? So I'll pass this on to Christine.
Yeah. Hi, Danielle. Thanks for the question too, Abdul. And I mean, I think that this is really going to depend on the industry that we are talking to within the US. Um, it is definitely something that you can secure. I will say there are um, more stipulations or regulations around this type of work happening outside of the US. There's some interesting laws and regulations that sometimes it's a little bit crazy to think about, go all the way down to where you're actually residing, as far as not just a city, but then a geographical area within that city and what data you have access to and you're touching. And that varies on industry. You guys have probably heard, and most people on the call have heard things around like GDPR. I know that things of consumer protection, privacy laws, those are very prominent in the UK as well as in the US. But then there are things that narrow down even more to the financial services industry or the healthcare industry and all of the protection and policies. The exciting thing is cloud, cybersecurity, DevOps, those domains. They are very important and they are growing quickly. People are starting to understand the importance around those. So I think the challenge we're going to be faced with here is looking at what data is going to be touched, access is needed to do these positions, and just to make sure that we are operating within regulations and not compromising any of that stuff. Is it definitely doable to secure a position in these areas outside of North America and the US? Most definitely. It has nothing to do with whether that person is sitting in Africa. We can't give some of this work to even Canada, which is also in North America, Mexico, that's in North America, India, East Africa. Like it's more of a geographical continental US challenge, and it can look state by state. So definitely doable. I would say there's probably more restrictions there in that space than in other spaces within technology. But I wouldn't rule it out. It just is going to have to be the right situation. I don't know, Emmanuel
Yeah,
or
thank you.
Richard, if you have anything to add to that, being that Richard, I know you sit more in the UK, and Emmanuel, you've bridged both geographies, but
I mean,
Yeah.
you're 100% right.
Mm.
Bam, yeah, I mean, you're 100% right, Kristen. It's just it's a lot more difficult, particularly in cybersecurity. It just is. And KB hit it on the head. It's not. It is just because of the regulations. There's just a lot of regulations. Those are very, very red tape heavy areas. Bam, what do you think?
Yeah, and I think both of you are absolutely right about that. I think occasionally we've seen people that have been lucky to find roles with companies who are not particularly bothered with GDPR and all of that, particularly depending on the kind of data or information that they need to be processed as well. But I think one thing that I'm seeing increasingly happen, I mean, it just brings about additional cost. And I believe that, companies like ourselves, like Emmanuel's and all of that, we're starting to kind of think in that direction, which is, kind of potentially using virtual computers to allow people abroad to be able to work. And I know, say, for example, in the UK here, there are certain GDPR compliance terms and conditions that you can put into your documentation and all of that can potentially protect you and protect the companies that you work for. Or if you put that into the contract, and companies know that only certain types of data will be processed outside of the country. Sometimes companies don't mind having people abroad kind of processing their data. But I think that increasingly we'll have to start leveraging things like virtual machines to do these things. Now, the other thing that I was going to say as well is that, as long as you're really good at what you're doing and you're putting yourself out there on LinkedIn and, all of these social platforms, you will find people. Because like I mentioned to you, I know a lot of people in Lagos and all over Nigeria who secure roles abroad with other clients, just because they put themselves out there and they've been tried and tested and they have actually performed. I know people that, they do a small contract here for 3-6 months, they leave that, and there's another one waiting for them, to jump on. So I think there's also that element of, if you're really good at what you're doing, companies would push the boundaries to kind of help you, or they'll put measures on ground to ensure that they have you on board. So I think there's also that element of, you really need to prove yourself, and you really need to make sure that you know your game really well as well.
Thank you, Bam. Thank you, everyone. This has been absolutely fantastic, and I can see that from the chat, you all are excited about this, as we are. So I'd like the speakers to take a quick screenshot of the speakers. Okay. Okay, awesome. Thank you. This has been great, as I mentioned, and I hope you can take away some important point from today, and it would be that the talent is there. So it's not just good, it's incredible, and the success stories are real. The barriers are mostly in our heads and not in reality. But here's the thing, Emmanuel didn't build Anchor Bridge overnight. Banan didn't train 1,000 people by accident. And Richard didn't get that 89% placement rate by luck. Christine didn't become an expert in global talent management sitting in an office. They all started by saying yes, when others were saying maybe later. To our amazing speakers, thank you for sharing your real stories and experiences, your honest insights, and your vision for what is possible. And to everyone watching, the question isn't whether you would eventually work with African talent. The question would be if you would be one of the smart ones to get started now. So if today's got you thinking that you want to explore African talent for your company, reach out to Emmanuel and our team at Anchorbridge Consulting. Visit anchorbridgeconsulting.com or email Grace at anchorbridgeconsulting.com. If you are looking for Salesforce talent specifically, please connect with Banan at DKloud Consulting. And if you want to partner with a training program, Richard at CodeTrain Africa is doing incredible work. If you need help with broader workforce strategy, please contact at the Amatroit Group. To everyone, we're sending a follow-up with a simple guide to getting started with African talent, a checklist for your first hire, and contact info for partners in different African countries. So here's my challenge for everyone. So in the next 30 days, please have a conversation about African talent in your company, just one. So whether you're thinking about ready to hire next week or you're just starting to think about it, you can plant that seed. Thanks everyone again for joining us today. Let's start bridging these borders. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, guys. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Thank you very much. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.